We're going to be dealing with Chapter 3 of the Exploring Adobe InDesign CS6 by Cengage. That is the book that we're working through. And in this chapter, it is called The Fine Art of Setting Type. Before doing a tutorial that's hands-on, we need to understand a few things about type and InDesign's built-in behaviors. For one thing, we need to take a look at the anatomy of type itself. And here we have a picture of a little phrase, and it kind of looks like when we were elementary school, we had a baseline and we did small letters and big letters. Okay, so for us as graphic designers, this is something that we really do need to know a little bit about. Each type form, or each letter form, as I may call it from time to time, each letter has its own space that it takes up. And we also need to deal with type size, or in other words, what you'll see most often is point size. And it varies as far as the look of it, even with the same point size. But where do we achieve our point size from? Well, some of it is from the typography, the letter forms, and the anatomy of those letter forms themselves. And you'll notice here that we have a few things to look at. So if you're working with this book, you should have a visual on one of the pages. So what we're looking at first, this has a mean line. Okay, it's not mean, it's like a basic line. We also have a baseline, which is the bottom touching area for the capitals and the lowercase. This is the resting point that goes all the way across. Okay, the mean line is basically the top of where most of your letter forms that have a lowercase lettering, that's what it goes up to, and it doesn't always even touch, but it does have a regular area. Now between the baseline and the mean line is what we call the X height. Usually we base it on a lowercase x that would fit into that space from the baseline to the mean line. And we also have a cap height. So going higher than the mean line, each capital letter has a cap height. And you're going to also notice that on something like this Y that has the two dots over it, there's some symbol that we can use, and that is actually part of the letter form itself. Some capital letters are going to take up a lot more space than others, and then also some letters extend below the baseline, and those have particular names. You'll notice right here the ones that the letters extend above the mean line, that is called an ascender, that part of it. Okay, so there's a lot more parts of lettering. I don't want to get into all of it, but we do have a little bit of a visual from the book that you can take a look at all that stuff yourself. But these are the main ones that we have to have a good understanding of. So the ascender is above the mean line or above the lowercase lettering usually. And it also takes into account capitalized letters. So those extend above that. The descender extends below the X height, and that's letter forms like the letter G and the letter Y. And those also may or may not extend the entirety of what we have here for a whole letter form and all the space that it actually takes up. A letter form also has some headroom and foot room, usually, not always. And it also, the letter form itself has a little bit of room from side to side. Now you'll see here on this V with the A next to it. Now the V extends to the right, and below it the A extends kind of into its space. Well, there's a balance there, and the letters, in between the letters, there's a term that we need to understand and use, and it's called kerning. And kerning is the space between the letters, but all together across the line of text altogether, it's called tracking, and that would be more of a normal from one edge of your phrase or line of text to the other. The tracking has a certain percentage, and so that the letter forms look a lot more natural one next to the other. If this A were moved out of the V space here, then it would look pretty odd because there would be too much space. So there's a bit of a balance there. All right, these are the basics that we would need to know about the letter form itself. But one of the things that we deal with in typesetting, okay, is our point size, or the size of the letter itself. We go by point sizes, and if you viewed one of my earlier videos, we talked about points and picas. Okay, so there are 12 points in a pica, and there are 6 picas in an inch. So it is based on an inch. Okay, that point size or pica size was determined quite a while ago by Apple and Adobe. So we're in good shape. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, and it can be frustrating with text or type sizes, is that you might end up with a particular point size and you'll change the typeface and it seems different than what you started out with. Here's an example of an X, and all of these are shown as the same point size, but because the letter forms, or in other words, the typeface family that it belongs to, it's a fancy typeface or it's not a fancy typeface, it's a serif or a sans serif. They have their own kind of spacing, and so they don't even look the same type size. But when we're determining type size, it still has an impact on the visual effect altogether of your lettering, your paragraphs, and whatnot. Okay, so this can change out. All right, as an example, I have here an X, and one of the things that I wanted to kind of do with you guys is to change the type size, and I do have a little bit of a trick, so maybe we can get along with this. If you do what I did, I just created a type box and put the letter X in it, okay, and then I am highlighting it here, and you can see even the below the space shows a little bit of line space between this and the next letter form that would go below it, actually. Now, if we want to change the typeface, you can use the control panel up here in the top, or your panels at the side. I've got a character panel. They have the same kind of controls there. All right, and we would be picking the typeface family. So what you have on your system here is what you would be choosing. Now, I have a little bit of a trick. Sometimes I like to just choose, let's put that away. I like to choose a typeface for maybe a headline. I want to show client some sort of visual on it, and I want to quickly go through the typefaces. So if I highlight my text and then I go to the character panel, or at least I need to choose, a typeface, either way. So if you highlight your text name, also the type family name, then you can use your up and down arrow keys. Now, instead of going and clicking on this and choosing one, if you have something in mind you want, you can do it this method. But if you just wanted to check and see what you want, you could use the arrows I don't know if you can see this or not. If I use my up and down arrows, okay, I am going through them, okay, and the X is also responding, okay, down here as to what typeface it actually is. Sometimes it gets stuck, but you can see same type size, same point size, but a lot of these letter forms are very different from each other, and you can quickly run through them to, look at some examples, okay? So the up and down arrow keys allows us to do that. All right, in the next video, we'll take a look at a concept, or actually a behavior that InDesign has for hidden characters.